أناجي الحق في ليل بهيم أصدق النجوى وأدعو الله من قلب سليم يطلب التقوى أناجي الحق في ليل بهيم أصدق النجوى وأدعو الله من قلب سليم يطلب التقوى.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum, and welcome to another edition of Perspective. My name is Faizel Patel. The Turkish 7th High Criminal Court in Istanbul, in Turkey, has issued warrants of arrest against 4 Israeli commanders from the Israeli Navy and the Israeli Defense Force. This follows a 4-year-long case involving South African journalist Gadija Davids from Radio 786 in Cape Town, who was on board the Mavi Marmara, a humanitarian aid flotilla or ship which was attempting to break the Israeli siege on Gaza on the 31st of May 2010. And this evening it's an absolute pleasure to have Gadija with me in studio to give us an idea of what happened on that day when these Israeli commanders and this Israeli army and the Israeli Defense Force or the Israeli Navy attacked that particular ship. Assalamu alaikum Gadija, and Jazakallah for coming on to Perspective.
Alaikum salam, it's good to be here.
Let's start off with this trip before you boarded the Mavi Marmara. When did this inspiration to go on this voyage, on this trip to break the siege in Gaza take place?
I think I'm not too sure about how it started initially, but I know someone called the radio station saying that there was this flotilla going. It was the first time that so many boats would be going and so much aid would be going to Gaza. And because Radio 786 covers Palestine all the time, covering it before it was popular to talk about Palestine and Israeli occupation, the radio station decided to send a journalist, and then my editor nominated myself. And it was about 4 days of filling in the forms and getting everything sorted, getting the plane ticket. By the Sunday, I left for Turkey. Yeah.
When they nominated you, what emotions was going through your mind at that moment that you were nominated? I know it's an overwhelming sort of being chosen.
Yeah.
It's like winning a competition, especially a lot of people want to go to Gaza to find out for themselves what's happening there. But what emotions were you going through at that moment?
I didn't let myself get too caught up in my head, because I have a tendency to do that. I was just more focused on what would be the result. I'll be going to Gaza. I'd be going to meet Palestinians that I have spoken to over the phone, doing interviews with them, especially during Operation Cast Lead, to actually see the impact of the Israeli attacks and the siege on that enclave. So that was my focus. I was obviously very nervous. It was my first time ever on a plane, my first time ever out of the country. So it was quite a big leap. But I found that once I got on the plane, I was fine. The nerves were gone.
Obviously, your mom would have had reservations about you going to Gaza, knowing that the wars and obviously the occupation by the Israeli forces. We've seen, what Palestinians go through on a daily basis. Did she have some apprehensions with you actually going there and reporting from Gaza?
She didn't tell me. Like she said, I said, I'm going to Gaza. I've been told I'm going. And I need to do this, and this sorted out so I can go. And they said, okay. I know my friends were scared for me, but at the time it wasn't really a question for me. It's like I was going to report in a place that I've been talking about for, I think it was about 4 years that I've been working at Radio 786. So yeah.
With regards to your own personal emotions, obviously you know, or you knew that if you go on this trip, you obviously covered the stories like you mentioned in the past, of the wars as well, the attacks, the raids by Israeli soldiers. Was there any sort of fear that you might become another statistic when you go on this voyage?
Honestly, I thought that the Israelis wouldn't be stupid enough to attack such a large contingent of civilians and aid. We were in international waters, and we were headed to Gaza to take aid. I always, after the attack and thinking back on it now, I thought if they had done nothing, if the aid had gone through to Gaza, it would not have been such a big story, and no one would have known. So no one would have cared actually, but because so many people from so many different countries were affected by that attack, they basically shot themselves in the foot by saying, this is what we do on a daily basis to Palestinians. And now, yeah.
Well, what I'm actually asking is, like, when you knew you were going, did you sit down in your room and think at one point, if I do go on this, I really want to go, I'm passionate about Palestine, but I could be killed. Did it ever cross your mind?
That thought, I think, only really hit me when I was on board the ship, and it was after the attack, and we were told to sit still while they were taking all the injured people off the boat. And I realized that no one that I know from South Africa knows that I'm alive. And then I realized that when you're dead, you're dead. And it's the people who mourn you. That's the ones that feel the thing. I would be with my creator. So I didn't really have that fear. Because, like I say, if you're dead and you're with your creator, then your work is done, basically. It's everyone else that has to find out that that's the trauma, that's the grieving process. So I was more worried about them than I was about myself at that point.
Let's go on to the point we're going to go on to the point now where you actually went on the plane, first time on a plane.
Yeah.
Then you boarded the Mavi Marmara. Maybe give our listeners or viewers an idea of the excitement now that you're actually boarding the ship, and this ship is now hopefully in that time before the attack happened was going to try to break the siege or the blockade on Gaza. What was it feeling like when you now boarded the ship and ready to sail?
It was actually a relief because there was a lot of delays leading up to when we would actually board the ship, because there was some they were busy processing all the goods that were going to be taken.
Yes.
So by the time we got actually onto the boat, it was by night time already. I can't actually remember the day, but just being on the boat, it's like I'm finally going. I finally can start my work, because it became difficult to report the same thing over and over again, because it's the waiting game and speaking to people who are going. And they all basically had the same aim of going to Gaza, meeting Palestinians, and showing their support.
With regards to now being on the ship, you guys obviously set sail. What the mood amongst the activists that were on board? You're now en route to Gaza. How did you guys spend your time? Obviously, a sea voyage is normally a long journey. It's probably seasickness or nausea. But how did you guys spend your time? Obviously, you would have found reports for Radio 786 as well. But obviously, there must have been a good atmosphere among the many activists that were on board.
Yes, and a lot of them knew each other from previous attempts of entering Gaza or protest action. So the kind of stories that they would tell, there was that one attempt to march into Gaza from Egypt, where the Egyptian authorities had basically attacked them and had them tied up. So there was those kinds of stories. It was hearing activists tell details of how they've faced the Israelis.
Of course.
That was really interesting, and it was just a little stories. Actually, there was one woman, her name was Rafa. She was from Palestine, and this would be her first time getting back home after I don't know how many years. So it was those kinds of stories. It was there was a pregnant woman on the ship. There was a baby on the ship. So yeah, it was just showing that the boat became a community in itself. The Mavi we were all just one big family, really. We recognized faces, you speak to everyone. Seasickness was an issue. But yeah, the cause was there, so you knew what you were doing and where you were headed to. So even the long times when there was nothing happening, you knew why you were there and what you were going to do.
Okay. Let's go on to the number of people. I don't think I asked you that. How many people were on the Mavi Marmara when you set sail?
I think it was about 700 people. I could be wrong. I think it was either 700 on the boat or 700 in total. But the Mavi, obviously being the biggest boat, had the most amount of people on board. There's a lot of aid workers, a lot of Turkish citizens as well. And then, of course, the journalist contingent.
Of course. Now, let's go on to the time when the attack took place. When did you guys first know? You're on this boat, you're setting sail for Gaza to break the siege. When did you first anticipate, or when did you first see that this boat is now going to be attacked by the Israeli Defense Force and Navy?
The Sunday night before the attack, we were told that our connections had been interfered with by the Israelis, and they had made contact. So we were told to pack up our belongings, whatever was laying around, sleep in our clothes, not to get in your pajamas or anything, and wear your life jacket. And then we also boarded up the windows at the women's quarters, which was right at the bottom of the ship. boarded those things up as well. So the people on board were quite prepared for any kind of, should there have been any kind of altercation. But I don't think anyone expected the kind of violence that we were greeted with. And then I think I fell asleep because I made contact with the Radio 786 telling them that this had happened. I also filed a report that I did an interview with a few German politicians who were on board the ship. So I sent that through, and then the Monday morning I woke up and the Fajr Adhan went off. It was around 4 o'clock, and that's when they hit. And then it was just stay downstairs, don't interfere. If you can't help, don't go up. So we sat there for hours. Some women made dhikr, some people just sat and prayed, because obviously not everyone was Muslim on board the ship. And then we heard on the intercom, stop attacking, we are unarmed civilians. And you just heard in the background the scuffles and the screams. And it was just continuous the whole time. And then I think it was 3 or 4 hours later, someone came down and said, you can come up now. And when we came up, there was about 3 flights to the top of the boat. I think we went up about 2 flights. There was blood on the walls, blood on the steps. When we eventually got to the place where they wanted us to sit, I saw 3 bodies laying on the ground. It used to be our kitchen area. And they were laying there wrapped up in white sheets, and there was blood coming through the sheets. And they told to sit down, don't make any sudden movements. And I got a seat next to the window, and the window couldn't close properly. So the propeller from the Israeli helicopters that were circling the ships was causing the window to hit. And it was just that for me stood out, the sound. It was like this constant knocking. But it also allowed the spray of the water into the boat, and it kind of cooled us down because they shut off the air conditioning. And then you see people being carried off in stretchers. A man needed an asthma pump, someone needed water. We could give whatever we had on us. It was just to see the kind of hatred in those Israelis' eyes for people who were just taking aid.
I'm going to ask you to keep that thought. We're speaking to Gadija Davids this evening. She's giving us an account of being on the Mavi Marmara. It was attacked by the Israeli Navy and also the Israeli Defense Forces. Close to 10 people that died in that day. Very, very sad. There was a press briefing held at Constitutional Hill where warrants of arrest for 4 Israeli commanders that were responsible for that attack have now been issued. If they step into South Africa, they will be arrested. We're going to go for a break. After the break, inshallah, we will continue speaking to Gadija Davids. It's a harrowing account. It's something so sad that a journalist who is supposed to remain impartial, who is impartial, and cannot get, obviously, the safety and passage from the Israeli Defense Forces that attacked the ship in 2010. Stay tuned to Perspective.
النجوى وأدعو الله من قلب سليم يطلب التقوى إلهي صرت في ظرف عصيب فاكشف البلوى فيا ربي أنا.
Welcome back to Perspective. My name is Faizel Patel. Remember, you can interact with me by sending me a mail on Faizel@itvnetworks.tv. Drop me a tweet on @Faizel143, or you can even comment on Facebook.com/Faizel Patel. This evening we're speaking to Gadija Davids. She was on board the Mavi Marmara that was attacked in 2010. It was attacked by Israeli Defense Force soldiers and also the Israeli Navy. A harrowing and scary account of what happened that day. It's absolutely sad. Gadija, continuing with that, you were saying that the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, and the Navy attacked. When they attacked, did they ask you to, or ask the people upstairs from what you know now, to surrender, or did they just start attacking straight away?
I know when they initially made contact with the ship, they said, why are you going to Israel, turn around? And then the captain of the ship kept saying, we're headed for Gaza, that's our route. We're not going to Israel.
Yes.
And that was what we've been saying. Even when they abducted us and took us to Ashdod, they kept asking us, why are you here? You're here illegally.
Yes.
And we kept saying, we're not here illegally. You brought us here. Yeah.
Now, we know that obviously 10 people were killed, 9 of them were Turkish as well. I know it's a bit difficult, but these people, and I mean it in a very sort of benevolent term, did they retaliate towards the Israeli army or the Israeli Defense Force for them to be shot by the IDF or the Israeli Navy?
I was below deck, so I didn't see the attacks. I don't know what ensued, but from what everyone else told me, it was more just trying to get them off the ship because they weren't allowed on the ship. They boarded illegally. It was an act of piracy. So I think they were within their rights to defend the ship because the ship became our home for those few days.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know exactly what happened.
When the attack happened, how far away were you from Gaza at that stage?
I know we were about 2 or 3 hours away. At the rate we were going, we were supposed to arrive in Gaza that morning, and that's when they attacked.
Okay, so now obviously there's 9 people killed. One is in serious condition. I understand that he passed away in the hospital. They then obviously took you guys off and then they detained you, and then they took you to a place called Ashdod. I know in the press briefing at Constitutional Hill, you spoke about the atrocious conditions of this particular place. Maybe share some of that place with our viewers. And specifically, I remember from the press briefing, you spoke about a particular toilet that uses the suction, or it was so filthy. Maybe just give an idea to some of the conditions that you and the other detainees experienced when you were taken into detention by the Israeli Defense Forces.
Well, the toilets I referred to was actually on board the Mavi.
Yes.
We were detained on the ship for a while as well. Even though we arrived at the port, we weren't allowed to get off immediately. They took us off in small groups.
Yes.
So they cut off the suction of the boats. It was those drop toilets.
Yes, yes.
So that obviously needs suction. And they were blocked because people were using them. There were under 700 people on board the ship.
Yes.
So there was feces in the toilets. There were people started resorting to using the showers because that was the only other option that I had a drain. It was really disgusting. That was just one of the things. You had to ask to get water. The men were kept handcuffed. We were allowed to, our hands were uncuffed when we got off. We were supposed to sit in the sun for a few hours while they wrecked the place. They threw all our belongings out. I don't know what they were looking for. When we came back, we weren't allowed to touch any of our belongings. I saw my recorder, the Radio 786 recorder on the floor. I couldn't pick it up. They shouted at you. I had no ways of communication. Yes, the women were uncuffed and the men were made to sit. And I know there's one popular activist, he refused to shower after the attack because he was covered in blood, Ken O'Keefe.
Yes.
And I remember he was sitting behind me and he was so angry. And he was shouting at the Israelis that they were cowards, that they were on board the ship illegally. It was an act of piracy. And there was one guy, Osama, who also shouted at them, and he was made to sit in the sun. And we heard beatings, we had like fist beats. But I didn't see anybody. He was made to sit out there for a long time. We had to ask them, can we get water to him, because he's been out there for a while. It was they just found little things to annoy you and just to grate at you until almost like they want you to snap.
With regards to that, obviously by now, your mom, I remember mentioning at the press briefing, she heard it on Radio 786 that the ship had been attacked. When you got back, and we're going to come to that eventually, what emotion did she go through? She must have been very, very fearful.
My mother's a very strong woman. I haven't heard all the stories yet from what happened at Radio 786 or in my family during that time. But she was, whatever story I hear, my mother was the strongest one. My father hardly spoke. He didn't want to speak to the media.
Yes.
My sister, I remember, I phoned her when I got to Turkey after the thing. I phoned her and she didn't want to talk to me on the phone because she was scared she was going to cry. So my mother was actually the strongest person, I think. She kept my family together that time.
It's also wonderful. I mean, I've noticed in the press briefing that you've got a wonderful support structure from your family. Yeah. Tell me about a little bit, just briefly, about the support structure. I mean, how they came, and when you came back, they enclosed you and obviously comforted you in the warmth of their love in their home as well again. Yeah,
I don't know. My family were not very openly affectionate, but the support is there.
Yes, yes.
So when I arrived in South Africa, I was taken to a separate room because they were scared of media. They didn't know what kind of mental state I would have been in.
Yes.
And my father and my sister were there, and my mother. And it was just, and our station manager, who became family. But yeah, it was just good to know. I felt safe. I felt like the experience was over, but I obviously didn't know what the actual implications were of it. I didn't know that I would be sitting here doing an interview with you.
Of course.
5 years later.
Yes.
So yeah, but they keep me grounded. My brother's very good at that.
Now, at the press briefing at Constitutional Hill on the 24th of November, we've seen that now that 4 warrants have been sort of issued for those Israeli commanders. You know, what does it mean for you knowing that this decision has been made? If they come to South Africa, that they will be arrested. If they go within a certain jurisdiction across the world, they will be arrested. This must bring some sort of solace for you.
Yes, for myself and for every other victim on board that ship.
Yes.
I'm glad that we have some kind of justice and we can hold them accountable, even though they didn't even recognize the Turkish proceedings, that they were tried in absentia, that this ruling still came about. And as my lawyers here had mentioned, 2 of them were involved in Operation Cost Lead as well. So it will bring some kind of justice to show that you can't kill people, attack people in their homes like that. It's not allowed, it's not right. And I don't know why the Israelis feel that they are allowed to do what they do.
Of course. I mean, it's been a harrowing experience, like I mentioned in the intro to the second part of this interview. You know, you've gone through the trauma. Obviously, you would have gone for counseling to ensure that you come to terms of what would happen to you. Given the opportunity, would you embark on a similar kind of trip to Gaza to ensure? I know while we think about ourselves and we got our own struggles, the Palestinian struggle continues every day on a daily basis. Would you once again, given the opportunity, go again to Gaza?
I always say this. I was robbed, because not of my personal belongings, but because I was supposed to go to Gaza and report from Gaza, and I was denied that opportunity. So if any other chance I get, inshallah, I would like to go back.
We've just got a few minutes left. Maybe a last thoughts and comments to our viewers of ITV?
I don't know. This experience has shown me that I'm not someone who likes the public eye, but anyone can play their role in seeking justice and fighting against injustice. So whether it is that you're boycotting certain products because you know that money goes to an oppressive state, or whether you write letters to media and say, you know, these kinds of things are happening, you're creating a dialogue and making people more aware. And I think I'm lucky in the sense that I work for Radio 786 and that I'm a journalist there, that I'm able to do that on a daily basis. So I think the point is to just keep speaking about it, keep making people aware of what is happening. And I know we always talk about Palestine, but the oppression is happening everywhere. It's even happening in our own country. So Palestine is a symbol of resistance, and we need to take that and their struggle as inspiration to fighting the kind of oppression that we see every day.
Gadija Davids, absolute pleasure to have you on Perspective this evening. May also make the transition of and come to terms with the harrowing experience. We know that there's significant process that's been made with regards to those warrants, and hopefully those Israelis do then set sail in record so they can get arrested and obviously account for their actions. But absolute pleasure to have you on Perspective this evening, and may Allah protect you and give you barakah and your family barakah in their lives also, inshallah.
Shukran for having me.
This was Gadija Davids. She was on board the Mami Mawara and giving us an account of actually what happened on that day when it was attacked by the IDF and also the Israeli Navy. Absolutely harrowing experience, and also it gives us some knowledge of what happened on that day. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of this week's edition of Perspective. You can join me again next week, inshallah, where we discuss stories making national, local, national and international headlines. Remember, you can interact with me by sending me a mail on Faizel@itvnetworks.tv, drop me a tweet on @Faizi143, or you can even comment on facebook.com/Faizel Patel. For myself, Faizel Patel, from the Constitutional Hill here in Braamfontein in Johannesburg. Fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أناجي الحق في ليل بهيم أصدق النجوى وأدعو الله من قلب سليم يطلب التقوى أناجي الحق في ليل بهيم أصدق النجوى وأدعو الله من قلب سليم يطلب التقوى إلهي سرت في ظرف عصيب فاكشف البلوى. فيا ربي أنا عبد لرد الضيم لا يقوى.